Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This video is a dungeon review of a level 15 Motherlode dungeon which I have recently played on my Oracle Discipline Priest. Now the purpose of this video is to sort of look at the main healing challenges associated with this dungeon and discussing some strategies of how Oracle Priests can overcome these challenges. We are a pre-made group, so this is not a group from the dungeon tool, and we are in comms. However, as you will soon find out, this key is anything but clean, and admittedly, this is in no small part due to mistakes that I am making with my gameplay, and we'll sort of be looking at these mistakes and analyzing what went wrong. In terms of making mistakes as a healer, it's often not even super big mistakes which can cost you dearly, but it can just be individual globals which are sort of mistimed, or you want to do something but then ended up doing something else for a second and suddenly everybody is dead. So yeah, anyway, so in the beginning we sort of accidentally pull the thug and the assassin. That I think was not planned. We chose to play the first section of this sort of road that's in the beginning of the Motherlode, which has the advantage of avoiding the thugs, because they are relatively dangerous with their uppercut. You can see it on me right now. They charge out of the group, they apply a relatively high amount of damage, they knock you into the air, as I was just rescued by the evoker so I don't get knocked up. But generally they are just relatively nasty mobs, and you can also just play the beginning, skip the thugs by running on the side of the houses, as you will see us do in a moment here, which I think, I'm not sure how effective this is from a count perspective, but I think from a danger perspective it's probably the better play. As we go up here on this ridge, and you can see I'm having quite a bit of trouble doing this. And there comes the point where it becomes awkward, because everybody is waiting for you. I wasn't quite there yet, but like an additional 3 or 4 seconds and it would have become a bit uncomfortable, I would say. Anyway, we do skip the mechanized peacekeepers. As a general rule, you want to play as few mechanized peacekeepers as possible. I think you end up needing to play one, which is this next one, although it also can be skipped if you have a demon hunter tank, for example, who can pull all of this trash to the side, meld it off while the group runs to the other side. Anyway, this pull is a relatively challenging pull, I would say, because it has multiple sources of danger. First of all, it has the mechanized peacekeeper, who does the charged shield, applying a relatively strong tank hit and then pulsing AoE damage out onto the group. But it also has the hired assassins with their fan of knives, which needs to be stunned or interrupted. Yeah, so as a healer in this pull, I am willing to commit all of my cooldowns. As you can see, I use my ultimate penitence, I also used my evangelism, I used my premonitions. Usually I would be a little bit more careful in using my cooldowns, because it's really not good if you ever are starved for cooldowns when you need them. So I always like to have at least one healing cooldown available. However, as this boss really does nothing, you can feel free to blow through all of your cooldowns, unless you want to pull some of the Azerite extractors onto this boss. But unless you're playing at the highest level, I would say that this is not advisable. One piece of tech that might be noteworthy here is that delaying the last bomb, so you kick the bombs into the boss, applying this debuff, so they take additional damage from everybody. If you delay the last bomb, you can extend the duration of this debuff, effectively increasing the overall DPS of your group. Anyway, we are going to skip this boss fight because there's really nothing happening here, which cannot be said for this next section, which is yeah, I would say actually maybe it's not the most challenging section in the dungeon, I would say, because it can usually be planned out relatively well. However, you can see that from a group composition perspective, we are not super well set up for these packs, because there's a lot of interrupts needed here, and we really don't have them. We have a short cooldown interrupt on the tank, and other than that we don't really have many short cooldown interrupts available. So there's usually some casts going through, which obviously makes the healing requirement much more difficult to deal with. Anyway, what you want to do on these packs is to always have one cooldown available for the Azerite extraction cast, which should be going out any second now. Okay, so I commit my Premonition of Insight here, and I can cast multiple penances in a row because they don't have a cooldown. And you can see we have quite a few casts going through here on the group, making this pull relatively dangerous. But we do manage to get rid of them. If the casts are interrupted properly, then all you have to think about as a healer here is to heal the AoE damage from the Azerite extraction. But now we get into the part of the dungeon where things start going wrong. Now usually you just pull this pack here. It's a little bit more difficult than the first one because of the space constrictions. Actually we do get the one of the Stone Furies on top of this pack as well. So it's not so easy here to dodge the Azerite extraction cast as it is in the previous section of the room, but it's still relatively fine. As you can see, one of the casts going through on me here, and but so far it's we are doing relatively fine. However, now for the next extraction casts, I think I'm ramping with Ultimate Penitence, and you can see we pull over here, and you can it's also one of my Ultimate Penitence bolts flies in this direction. So I'm not sure what pulled it, but you can see, okay, we pulled. I also did damage to them. I don't have aggro though, so I don't think it was me, and I would expect Ultimate Penitence to not just randomly shoot over here, but I'm really not 100% sure. But this obviously makes the pull much more dangerous, because now you have two Azerite extractors to deal with, meaning a ton of additional void zones on the ground, and we also had a lot of casts going off at the same time, which essentially wipes us immediately. One thing to note also is you can see the bleed debuff from the puncture cast of the Azerite extractors stacks, so you then have double the bleed on the tank, which obviously deals a ton of damage. So it's probably usually not advisable to pull two of them at the same time. Unfortunately, in the way we did it, the Azerite extractor is still alive, and yeah, so we do a bit of an awkward pull because we don't want to do it in isolation. So we do run with the Azerite extractor onto the next pack, so onto all of the Stone Furies, which I think in theory is fine, but also this pull is going very wrong, because the space in this arena is just very small, and I don't make it out of the puddles on the ground. I could have run over here to the front, but sort of just a little bit too slow to react, and also with this tank here at the side, I just didn't manage to get out. I do get a combat res, but to my peril, the same thing is just going to happen again. Here's the next Azerite extraction cast, and you try to find the gaps, and suddenly there is no gap anymore. And as a priest, I don't have any sort of big movement abilities, so I get one shot again. So for future reference, what I would have to do is move not on the horizontal plane of this road, so not like this, but move on the vertical plane, because then you can just keep moving into one direction and every time you will be fine. So yeah, but that was certainly a bit of a problem. Then again, I have never played any of the extractors in this confined space. Now for the Taskmaster, this pull is usually rather uneventful so long as the tank knows what he is doing and the bleed debuff does not stack on him too much. But we also have an Evoker who can dispel the bleed once during this fight with Cauterizing Flame, so there's really not much danger going on in this pull. And as a healer, I want to hold my healing cooldowns for Azarok, because he is, in terms of the bosses in this dungeon, he has the highest healing requirement, which, to be fair, is not a particularly tough contest, because the other bosses are pretty easy in terms of healing, and in general terms as well. But yeah, if you have the option, make sure that your healing cooldowns are available when starting this fight. And he spawns the Infused Earth Rager, empowers one of them, the group needs to kill them. And you can see that I start by using my Premonition of Insight, casting 3 penances in a row, and then also committing my Evangelism. And we're actually still relatively low, so I also use my Premonition of Piety. Yeah, I don't know if this was just a bit of a lack of damage on the ad, but certainly a lot of damage going out on the group. So at this point I'm a little bit worried for this fight, because I blew through the cooldowns which I had available relatively quickly. However, I do have my Ultimate Penitence rotating back up. This Earth Rager also dies somewhat more quickly. At this point it just becomes about topping the group before the Tectonic Smash goes out. Sorry, the Resonant Quake goes out, which is fine, so we are topped up. And the cycle just starts anew. So one of the ranged players is always focused by the ads and needs to run away from them, while the group kills the Infused Earth Rager, which is always the one with more HP. As a side note, if you are playing in a pug, you should make sure to invite at least one additional ranged player, because the focus will never go on the melee player. And if there are no other ranged players in the group, then you as the healer will be the one who has to deal with kiting the mobs, which puts additional mental load and additional difficulty onto a fight that is already relatively difficult. However, we recover relatively well from the somewhat shaky beginning, and now the ads are dying quite quickly, substantially making the fight substantially easier. So I have my Evangelism back up, and I use it to top us off, and the ad is already dead. As a general rule, not just for this encounter, but for all boss fights, which take a little bit longer, is to start the fight by using your shorter cooldowns, which is a little bit of perhaps a little bit counterintuitive, because obviously if you start with a longer cooldown, then this cooldown will regenerate all the time, whereas if you start with a shorter cooldown, perhaps intuitively it would make sense to have the longer cooldown on cooldown first. However, if you start with the short cooldowns, what this achieves is that they will rotate back up during the end of the fight. So if you start with the short cooldowns, you can effectively use them twice in a fight, whereas the long cooldowns you can only use once anyway. So the fight will never take 4 minutes. So if I use Ultimate Penitence in the beginning, then I will not have it back up in the end. If I use Evangelism in the beginning, which is a 1.5 minute cooldown, then I will definitely have this back up in the end. So as a general rule, always start rotating through your shorter cooldowns, then move into your longer cooldowns in the middle of the fight, and then you have your shorter cooldowns back up in the end. And you should also want to plan out for each damage event which cooldown you want to use. Obviously being ready to commit more cooldowns if something goes wrong, but it's sort of a good general rule to have the healing cooldowns mapped out in this way. By the way, as a side note, this wooden construction here does not seem to be a line of sight restriction, so you can cast through it, which sort of saved us there, because if that had been line of sight, we were positioned relatively all over the place, then I probably wouldn't have been able to heal this. By the way, you can also see I play the Bursting Light spawn trinket, which is many many Oracle Priests play this due to their lack of damage. And what you want to do with this trinket, if you have it, so you place it on the ground and it pulls this AoE damage out onto all the mobs which are around it, and you can shield it or apply atonement to it with any other healing spell, but shield is usually a pretty good way to go, and then just keep healing it passively and actively so that it lasts for the entire duration of 20 seconds. And if you do this, you will still not be a particularly potent damage dealer as an Oracle Priest, but you will certainly be able to deal out a little bit of damage. So you can go out of bigger pulls with about 1 million DPS by using this trinket. Sort of addressing one of the weaknesses that Oracle Priest has. Certainly not fully redeeming this deficit, but certainly helping it out a little bit. Now this part of the dungeon it's a bit messy. It's not necessarily particularly difficult, but there's a lot of individual spot damage going on which needs to be healed, so you certainly have to be mentally ready as I place down my dome and then immediately run out, because this is just too scary for me, because you can't see the little cyclones in it. So I made a judgment call that the damage reduction of the dome is definitely not worth being hit by one of those cyclones, because I can't see them. Now usually on this trash pack, because it's one of the more difficult ones, especially if you chain it with the pack before, I advise people to just blow through all of their cooldowns. However, in this case I try to not use any of my cooldowns, because we are going to pull one of the war machines onto the next boss. The next boss essentially does nothing, so I think you could play it on a level 30 dungeon and you'd still be fine. It would take forever, of course, but there's absolutely no damage going on this next boss fight, even for the people who are targeted by the abilities. So yeah, you can certainly pull one of the war machines onto it. Some groups even pull two, but we decide to do just the one, and we pull this one because this one is not connected to an ordnance specialist. So the ordnance specialist would also put the artillery barrage on the ground, which then makes it very challenging because of the space restrictions that you have. But now, essentially, I have to heal the low damage of the boss fight plus the charged shot, which, yeah, you can commit your cooldowns here, just cycle through your premonitions. You can see now, for the next one I have my ultimate penitence. I would expect to be using it. Yep, there's ultimate penitence. It's not strictly necessary, but the boss will take quite a while anyway, so it will come back up relatively soon after the boss fight, so there's no harm in using it really. Now at this point you could decide to pull the next war machine onto the boss as well. However, in this case you would need to make sure to CC the ordnance specialist who is standing next to it, just so that you don't get the artillery barrage which denies the space in the boss arena. Anyway, we don't do that because we figure time is okay, and I'm not sure if we're playing them at all anyway, so let's just skip through this boss fight. It's really uneventful. No, we do play it actually, so we might have decided to pull it onto the boss and CC the ordnance specialist. Now this fight is a little bit more messy due to the artillery barrages on the ground, and also if you're ever targeted by the bombs as a healer. Yeah, you can see I'm taking a little bit of a trip to Narnia here, because yeah, I don't know, I probably could have moved better overall to not get into this awkward spot. But as a priest you don't have any displacement, so you can't knock back the bombs or so you really need to respect it when they are chasing you. Anyway, so individual war machines usually aren't so difficult to heal, so long as you have atonement on your team and you're ready to commit a defensive penance whenever the charged shot goes out, and then you can just heal with shields and some flash heals, for example, as well as just casting smite to do the rest of the charged shot damage. it becomes significantly more difficult whenever you pull 2 of the War Machines, especially when this pull is then also combined with an Ordnance Specialist, which requires a lot of movement. Now you can see we have 2 Ordnance Specialists as well as a War Machine, which means that we'll have to be moving around a lot on this fight. Now I cast my Ultimate Penitence. I'm absolutely not happy with this decision, because the next pull will be the double War Machine pull, and I will not have it available for this pull then, which is a huge mistake. It's really a very big mistake to use this cooldown here willy-nilly. It was absolutely not necessary to use it for this moderate damage of one war machine. There weren't even many bombs. It was not a chaotic fight or anything. So now we go to the final pull of the dungeon. We apply Mind Soothe to these mobs, and we do manage to aggro it anyway, so that was not planned. And you can see immediately I have to dodge the artillery barrage. And now we make a big mistake here. We do not communicate in which direction of the boss arena we want to go. There's a huge amount of damage going out. Our evoker moves to the other side of the arena, and here is where things really start to go wrong. So far, I think I've played decently. Let me pause here for a second. I've played decently. I still have my my evangelism available. Premonition of Insight is rotating back up, so I'm still feeling relatively comfortable here. Unfortunately, my dome, yeah, we just have to move out of it because of the bombs, so it doesn't help us that much. I also have my pain subs, which I might use. So at this point, I'm still fine, but we are getting into a big problem now. We already missed it, actually. Let's go back here for a moment. And now I want to, so I apply Radiance. And I think now my Radiance also already didn't hit our Evoker. And now in a moment we can see I want to cast Penance on the Evoker. I think my next global is supposed to be Penance or a Dark Reprimand because I have the buff. And he moves out of range in the instant that I press it. So you could see me pressing it there for a second, and he's just out of range. But I need a second in my head to realize that the Penance which I pressed, and which he wasn't out of range when I pressed it, or it was just very close, I need a second to realize that I didn't cast it. So yeah, and this, obviously with this high amount of damage going on, now now I realize, okay, I have Penance still available and I cast it. But this is already, now it's already a huge problem here. I apply Pain Sub to our Evoker, I ramp up again with Radiance. And yeah, again, big mistake here. This one is fully on me. The first one I would forgive myself more for, because that's really just very difficult. But you can see I press Penance, now I hammer it, but it's not quite ready yet. And the second it comes back up, I think I've already cast it, but I haven't. And again, I miss out on a Penance, and you really can't afford to miss out on 2 Penances in a row in this super high damage encounter. And I also have an instant cast Radiance still available, which I should have used. But at this point, I was just sort of panicked, and that further decrease the quality of my gameplay. You can also see I still have a healing potion as well as Desperate Prayer. So that's just a very chaotic fight with the bombs and the artillery barrage and the range problems, because we move to different areas of the arena. Our tank gets blown up in the end for good measure, just to make a scuffed pull, put the cherry on top, I would say. So yeah, definitely a few mistakes with the Penance. Also that I did not have my Ultimate Penitence available, also a mistake. Very difficult pull. Also in retrospect, I think we should have lusted it for sure, because we did have Bloodlust available, but we didn't. Yeah, so this really goes to show that smaller mistakes in terms of missing a global on Penance can really mess up the healing on these pulls, and you think you've cast a spell, but you haven't, and the fight is just over. Anyway, good learning for the future. So for us as a group, certainly, we can just more clearly communicate where the group is going to go. There's a lot that went wrong. We also pulled the Ordnance Specialist, although we didn't want to, further increasing the positional awareness requirement of the fight. Anyway, so this boss is relatively uneventful. Essentially, you just need to move to the zones which are safe from the choppers who are casting the micro missiles from the side of the room. Some groups like to be standing over here all the time. I don't like this approach at all. Yeah, there is a spot where you can theoretically stand, but it can get very awkward with the Gatling gun, and it's really not that difficult to just move to the area which is safe. And it's just, I think it's just the objectively better play. It's just lazy, in my opinion. It's just laziness if you stand on the safe spot. But maybe if done perfectly in a communicated group, this is just really good with the safe spot. I'm not super sure, but I just like it more like this. As we do have a problem here with a bit of an overlap of the micro missiles and the Gatling gun. But you can take a bit of damage from the Gatling gun for sure. Now this is the phase of the fight that's actually dangerous as compared with the other one, because here there's actually quite a lot of damage going out with the buster shots. So the ads need to die relatively quickly. You can see me taking a lot of damage here. And then this overlaps with the Drill Smash. You can see Drill Smash is casting on our mage, and it will come down here. It's a moderate damage AoE event, but if it overlaps with the buster shots, then you have a problem. So you can see me committing my premonition of clairvoyance here, just to make sure that the group is at 100% HP. I might even commit more if anybody drops low again. Okay, we're fine, so this is fine. And this continues multiple times, so don't be afraid to blow all of your healing cooldowns here, because you won't need them later. And it's really very important that everybody is topped up whenever the Drill Smash is going out. You can see now it's on me, and this is actually a bit dangerous, so we are not at full HP. But it's still fine. But this was a bit of a dangerous one. Unfortunately, it was also on me, so I could not so easily cast Ultimate Penitence, because then I can't move out of the ground stomp. Otherwise, it would have been a good idea to commit Ultimate Penitence there. I also might have considered putting a Pain Suppression on our priest, who was the lowest in the group. Yeah, so, and from this point on, it's just rinse and repeat. We also saved our Bloodlust for this section of the boss fight, as all of us get hit by the missile, because why not? That's just yeah, for the healer to have some additional fun at the end of the dungeon. Get some additional healing log power. I don't know. Anyway, we do time it. You can see it's really scuffed, but if you have a good amount of damage, then even with 14 deaths, you can time a level 15 Motherlode dungeon rather comfortably. So there were really a lot of mistakes going on and a lot of awkward situations. But in the end, all is well. We do time it with about 30 seconds left. Now, before we conclude, what I want to do is just very briefly look at the healing log of the log of the dungeon. You can see in terms of damage, the damage logs for Oracle Priest are always a little bit of an awkward happenstance, because you are competing with Void Weavers who will always do more damage than you. Not sure if on level 15 is sort of the point where this starts to level off, right? Because the higher you go, the more Oracle Priests there will be, and the fewer Void Weaver logs there will be left. I think 15 is probably still a bunch of Void Weavers in there. Anyway, I don't think I've played it particularly well from a damage perspective. I'm also usually about optimizing the healing first before starting to optimize the damage, which sort of results in casting additional defensive penances when you could get away with casting offensive penances. Also in terms of the Bursting Light Spawn trinket, I use it. I don't always manage to keep it alive. It's also sometimes misplaced maybe. Anyway, so yeah, not a particularly good damage log, but I'm okay with it. And in terms of healing, I did reasonably well with a 97. Yeah, not much to say about that. There was a lot to heal. I certainly made some major mistakes with my healing and certainly with my positioning as well. But live and learn, I suppose. Anyway, guys, if you made it to this point of the video, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content and also other healing related content, give the video a like. Also consider subscribing to my channel. I have a lot more stuff planned for this channel. And I'd be happy to have you around for that. Thanks guys for watching, and see ya.